It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, before we begin our conversation on issues in the Kogi State off-cycle governorship election coming up next month, let's listen to the backgrounder by Joseph Osen, our correspondent.
Kogi State is joining Bayelsa and Imo States for the off-cycle governorship election on the 11th November 2023. All the 18 INEC-registered political parties have candidates contesting the seat of power to replace the sitting governor, Yahaya Bello, who have served 2 terms. Campaigns are on, and the gladiators are busy wooing support of electorate. The candidates include Daniel Dino Malaye of the People's Democratic Party, Usman Dodo of Progressives Congress, and Murtala Yakubu Ajaka of Social Democratic Party to lock horns with 15 others. INEC register shows that there are 1,932,654 registered voters for the Kogi poll, with 3,508 polling units captured. At one of its regular meetings held on 10th October 2023, INEC maintained it will still engage the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System (BVAS) and will upload results from polling units to INEC Result Viewing Portal. From all indication, this election is likely to be one of the keenly contested one since 1999, with all contestants holding strong political background and gaining backing of their ethnic groups and zones. Though political experts expect alliance at the tail end to play a key part in determining the outcome of the poll. But Kogi State is not left out of political toxicity with recorded violence in the past. The latest rumor of assassination attempt on the state governor Yahaya Bello, which the governor came out to refute, simply tells how much election issues can be tensed in the state. Nevertheless, the assurance from the nation's electoral body and security agencies for a free and credible exercise come November 11 gives hope that the people's choice would hold sway. Good Morning Nigeria will focus this time on the intrigues surrounding the upcoming Goba poll in Kogi State.
Joseph Otseng, thank you very much. And so with that, we turn our attention now to the confluence state, Kogi, and the upcoming November 11 governorship election. We have seated right here in the studio with us Atiku Abubakar Issa. He's a political analyst, and we're glad to have him join us.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. And also joining us from our Port Harcourt Network Center is Barrister Festus Obuche, constitutional lawyer and public affairs analyst. Barrister Obuche, it's good to see you once again.
Claire, thank you, Kingsley, for inviting me. Very grateful. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much there, Festus Oguche. Now, also part of this conversation and joining us from our Lokoja studios, Jonathan Omajali. Jonathan Omajali is NTA's political correspondent. Jonathan, we're glad to have you on the program this morning. Seated with him in the Lokoja studios is Hamza Aliyu. Hamza Aliyu is Executive Director, Initiative for Grassroots Advancement in Nigeria in Lokoja, Kogi State. Gentlemen, you are both welcome to the program. And if you can hear me, let's begin with the NTA political correspondent, Jonathan Omajali. What is the political temperature like in Kogi at this time, with barely 3 weeks to the governorship election?
Well, with barely 3 weeks, just as you said, of course, you expect things to begin to heat up. The various parties are beginning to intensify their campaigns. Some of them, of course, are going not just to the city center, but a lot of them are going to the hinterland, interior, trying to canvass for votes. And just as you heard in the report, the backgrounder, you have alliance, you have people who are pitching their tents with other political parties. Perhaps they feel they will do better with some parties. And so you have all of that beginning to play out. And of course, it's going to be like that until the election proper. So that's how it is for now. But of course, things are beginning to get intense as the days draw closer.
Jonathan, let me start with, the issue for which everybody in Kogi is concerned about, that's security. And almost all the candidates, the party candidates, both from Kogi West to Kogi East to Kogi Central, are complaining about one form of attack, one form of suppression or the other. Aside from the Labour Party man himself, I don't know, is there anything that we're not understanding?
Well, I think, of course, security is a major issue. And of course, we hope that the government and of course those that are involved in that area will find the solution to it as the days go by. Because let's take for instance, I think in June thereabout, we had the office of the SDP burnt down, and then several attacks here and there, pockets of attacks in communities during campaigns and all of that. But these are major issues that, of course, are calling for attention. But we also have bodies and organizations. For instance, the traditional rulers are also beginning to meet to call the people, talk to them. For instance, in Kogi West recently, I think there was a meeting with the Obaru of Kaba. We had political parties, we had stakeholders that came together to discuss with him. And the key issues that were raised, I think the major one had to be on security. How do we talk to our people? How do we talk to the political parties so that they can play it fair? Because of course there is life after election. Things will go on. The state will still remain. So if we burn down the state, if we destroy the state, where do we have to go after the election? So people are interested. Traditional rulers are talking, and of course it's part of the issues that are being discussed in religious circle.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much for your explanation. But my focus would be beyond process and procedure, because the process leading to the governorship election is part of what you talked about. That's violence, which appears to be a recurrent theme with respect to Kogi. And my question then is going to Hamza, who is with you there in our Lokoja studios. Namely, look, aside from violence that frames the process in the election itself, what are the issues that are of concern to the electorate? Yes, violence might deter some voters from going out to cast their votes, but what are the issues? Is it ethnicity? Is it development? What is of concern to the people, and what is it that the political gladiators are highlighting at this time?
Thank you for having me again. Good morning, Nigerians. I think, Kingsley, you hit the nail on the head in terms of asking that question. What are the issues that should drive this particular election? And so for us in Kogi State, a lot of the citizens, one key issue that is really at the top of that conversation is the issue of infrastructure. Kogi has a lot of deficit in terms of infrastructure, roads, housing, even if you call it water, power. All these things are issues that, the bread and butter issues that disturb citizens. And so the yearning, the thinking before this election campaign began was that we needed the conversation to be around these issues. What strategies do the candidates think that they can come up with in terms of getting extra funding for government so that we'll be able to provide this infrastructure? Who thinks that they have a better strategy in terms of providing the necessary roads and health facilities that our people need? And who has a better idea in terms of moving Kogi fast enough towards that development agenda that we're looking for? And so that was the thinking and the aspirations that Kogites had before these campaigns started. Unfortunate for us, we are back to this part of the discussion that has to do with ethnicity and religion, and even gender is playing is rearing its head in this campaign. We're hearing persons from different sections of the states are saying it's their turn to lead. Other sections are saying no, you had your turn, you are 16. All those primordial issues that we were hoping will not bring itself up, and now we're having it. And it has begun, or it has almost shaped the conversation of these campaigns. And so you rarely hear issues around what the candidates and political parties are going to do in terms of infrastructure, in terms of giving us power, in terms of raising the standard of living of the people. And it's really sad for us as citizens in Kogi State that we have to choose between these candidates. To make it look to bring it to point, the front runners in this election are actually from one or two political parties. And so because the law does not allow individual candidates to run for office of governor or run for elections, we are forced to choose between candidates that are actually from the same ideology, the same mindset. The SDP candidate and the APC candidate are all from the same area. In terms of political ideology, they're from the same APC. The PDP candidate and the ADC candidate are all from the same. They are basically from the same crop of politicians. And so the idea and the conversation really bothers citizens to say, when do we get to the issue of who will make Kogi better, who will help Kogi people, who will tell us how they are going to make Kogi move from where we are currently to where we need to be. If you look at the issues around housing, we really have deficit in housing in Kogi State. Public built owner-occupier houses this government has not done much in this area, and so it's a lot of conversation in that direction. And we are hoping that between now and that 9th of November, when the campaigns will stop officially, that something around this kind of conversation will begin to take place.
All right, Hamza, thank you for the points that you have raised, and I'd like to direct my question to Barrister Festus Oguche, who is a constitutional lawyer and public affairs analyst. Barrister Oguche, you listened to the response of Hamza, and I'm wondering, the incumbent governor has said that ethnicity will no longer determine the content and context of politics in Kogi henceforth. But if you look at the candidates, the various candidates that have emerged, they all represent one ethnic, tribe or the other. Do you think that conversation is likely to shift beyond ethnicity to the more, critical needs such as infrastructure and other social services?
Stated is the ideal that we should touch and focus more on the equality of candidature rather than the origin. It has been the ideal, and we have been making case about it for quite some time since the advent of this democratic system, since 1999. Unfortunately, the political actors are not very much interested in that. They only go ahead and do their thing, and for them to get what they want to further their desperation, they feed aid to the weakness awarenesses of the population and begin to ignite issues that touch on primordial attachments, like the other speaker said. Unfortunately, that appears to be the trend within the Kogi state election conundrum, particularly the forthcoming election, and it has even advanced beyond this primordialism to a state where it's a matter of survival. Guns and arrows and spears are being used. I give you some particular scenarios that will point to that effect. 2 governorship candidates had to go to the federal high court to get protection of the federal security authorities before they can move, or even before they can even stay within the state. The other day, the Honorable Justice J.E. Omotosho of the Federal High Court, a very astute judge, gave a judgment directing that the state government has no power to go into firearms issues like that and all that. And we see a lot of killings and violence in the state. It's even beyond the issue of ethnicity. It has gone into the issue of the survival of the fittest, the one who has the most guns. It's a replay of the 2019 scenario that we had, very unfortunate scenario of the framework, which has disregarded the real issues that should bother elections, campaigns, and polls. Unfortunately, the voter apathy must be very low.
Oh, there. Festus Oguche, we seem to have lost our satellite connection to our studios in Port Harcourt.
He's back.
All right, Festus, you're back. Just continue with your intervention.
I was talking about the level of violence. Rivers State used to be the hub of violence in elections in the past, but it appears now that Kogi State has taken over from where it stopped. The level of violence in Kogi State is becoming very intolerable, and people are beginning to ask questions. So it's not just the issue of ethnicity. Left alone for ethnicity, let people come out and exercise their franchise. But now I'm sure the level of voter apathy there must have reduced must have been tampered with very, very much, because people do not even come out of their houses. Guns are booming all over in communities, in local governments, in Kogi State. People are being killed, you know. And like I said, it's a replay of the of the 2019 era, which saw a lot of killings and all that. And it appears that the federal authorities are not just too concerned about it. I thought by now, after these years of our democratic experience, the issue of violence and thuggery in elections should have abated, and it's simply because the people who the purveyors of violence, the purveyors of thuggery, do what they want and they get away with it because they have the support of the political elites, which is very unfortunate. I think the 2019 elections, governorship elections in Kogi State, is something that should have been taken care of if you are very much mindful of preserving our democratic system. But unfortunately, nothing has been done in that regard. We have more violence now going on, more killings, more destructions. Party secretariats are being burned, political party rallies are being disrupted, guns are shooting all over the place. And we begin to ask questions. If you do not put in enough effort, proper initiative to ensure that these things are abated, how will you ensure or guarantee that this democratic system will take us some time from now? It's quite a problem. And like I painted the 3 scenarios, for instance, I know that a lot of the governorship candidates could not campaign within the state because of insecurity problems. I know a lot of people will not be coming out to vote because of insecurity problems. And we are saying the federal government has a duty to intervene. It was in the same 2019 elections that one Achije Abu was burnt live in her house. The matter went all the way to the ECOWAS court. I conducted it before the ECOWAS court, and the court ordered for some payments and apology. Till date, nothing was forthcoming. The people who were arrested, you know, for the crime based on the order of the court that they should investigate and all that. I mean, some of them were let go. Some were put into very short prison sentences. The burning of a woman that necessitated the intervention of the International Criminal Court. And by the way, the freelance that we are getting says that the International Criminal Court will come to investigate these elections and investigate the issues that happened in 2019, but people are still not learning lessons. And we expect that the federal authority will intervene voluptuously to ensure that these incidences of insecurity, these incidences of violence and killings will stop. Thank you very much, Kingsley.
All right, Barrister Festus Oguche, thanks a lot there for the comments that you have made. Now back to the studios with Atiku Issa, a political analyst here with us. Again, the question is almost inevitable. How is it that political roughnecks appear to have the upper hand in the governorship election, or rather in the reports concerning the governorship elections in Kogi? Where are the saner voices who will call attention to what is critical to the people of the state?
Let me start by quoting the French most celebrated military and political leader, Napoleon Bonaparte. He said that when small men attempt great enterprises, they always end by reducing them to their level of mediocrity. What is happening in Kogi State today, sometimes I hide to cry so that my children don't see me. Last Sunday, a man, Musa Abubakar, was at the front of his house. Some men came, wind down, gunned him down. Not the killing that shocked me most, but the statement afterwards that he's an APC supporter, some say he's an APC thug. So now the question is, if you are a supporter of APC or alleged thug, somebody can just come and kill you. Then same thing with this thing. We have to. We should not just be talking. We have to act. And I think the solution is not very difficult. This is because what is happening is between the APC and APC, because the SDP candidate was the Deputy National Public Secretary of APC, who defected to SDP to contest the election. It was alleged that during the presidential primaries, where he was PA to the then acting national chairman, the governor of Yobe State, allegedly that there was an understanding between him and Governor Yahaya Bello, of which politicians, what they know how to do best, there was a transaction between them. And that the presidential ticket will be handed over to Governor Yahaya Bello. And of course, we know that Yahaya Bello never became the presidential candidate. And that is the genesis of the fight. So as I'm saying this, I want the heads of security agencies to please take note. Call these two men, settle their differences so that our lives, we can live peacefully in the state. There's nothing that is happening. This is just the problem of these two people are the problem now. And it was as a result of the political transaction that went sour. It was said, I should be quoted, that Governor Yahaya Bello asked Murtala Yakubu Ajaka to go and pick the APC form. Himself, Murtala Yakubu Ajaka confirmed that to me. Yet that at the end of the day, he never got the ticket. He moved to SDP. So that is why they are fighting. So I appeal to the President and Commander-in-Chief to call these two men, because as at last count, I counted 13 people killed from where I come from, that's Kogi East. And all of them, once they are killed, they say, no, he's an APC supporter or SDP supporter. So now, if you are supporting a political party, it's your choice. So why should you be killed because you are supporting a political party? There is going to be voter apathy because majority of the people will not be able, including myself, who is so much interested in bringing changes to the state, because anybody can be killed.
You know, despite all that is happening, power belongs to the people. And that power is in the voter's card. And it is only when the people are aware of what they want that they can utilize that power. So my question will be, do the people of Kogi actually know what they need, or are they just, being swayed by these political rhetorics?
To answer that, there are two things. One, the level of abject poverty. The people are so poor now, impoverished, that they are confused. They can't take decisions for themselves. Secondly, ethnicity. I wonder when people say, no, this, it's our turn. These same people claim it's our turn. Even those who are in power now, if you go, the roads leading to their houses are not good. They don't have functional hospitals. So I don't know why, of what use is your turn that even when you get it, your life will still not be better. So the people are so confused that they need orientation. Because most of the people in Kogi State, I can say that more than 60% of the voters will vote based on ethnicity.
But the people of Kogi are not in isolation of the rest of Nigerians. You know that over 133 million Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. So poverty is not just, peculiar to Kogi State and all that, And yet people in other states, are desirous of change and have embraced change.
Because as it is now, the campaign is not even based on what the candidates are not talking about what they intend to do when they win election. They are campaigning based on sentiment. So with this sentiment, and even the people are also aligning with these candidates based on sentiment, not based on what this. Okay, when you look at the candidates, they have antecedents. The leading candidates are not actually do not really have what it takes to lead a state. In my own opinion, they don't have what it takes, because when you look at the antecedents, they have not done anything in the past to show that they will be able to move a state like Kogi State forward. Some don't even know. They have never held any political position in their life, in the sense that any serious political position where they have taken serious decision in their life. But because of one reason or the other, most especially because of the place where they come from, they get a lot of support. And in this case, like the candidates, we must sometimes, when we criticize others, we should commend some persons who have been able to do very well. And I think in this contest, one of the candidates that has not been, you don't see Togri attacks during his campaign or anything related to Togri. With him is the former chief of naval staff, Admiral Usman Jibri of the Accord Party. I think he's a worthy ambassador of the military. He has been the only candidate for now that has been able to move peacefully and conduct himself in a very peaceful manner. His supporters are not attacking, but they are not attacking. And he's not attacking anybody. He's not even using his position as a former chief of naval staff who have military guiding him to intimidate people. And I think we should commend him for that. But for the other two candidates, I really want to appeal to the security agencies. Let them be called to order. There should be a meeting between them. Settle the rift so that at least let the people of Kogi State live peacefully.
Okay, thank you very much, Atiku Isa. Let's return to our guests, including our political correspondent in Lokoja. But my question, of course, will be going to Hamza Aliyu. Hamza, well, first also, Guche, draw our attention to the parallels between Rivers and Kogi in terms of electoral violence. And I remember that at the time when the violence was top of the issues in Rivers, questions were being asked to say, look, okay, we know who these gladiators are. Of course, clearly we named them. Wike, who is now Minister of FCT, and the then Minister of Transport, Amechi, who was formerly governor. People were asking the question, are there no elders in Rivers? Are there no elders? I'll ask the same question now. Are there no elders in Kogi, for instance? that this free rein is being given, as it were, to political roughnecks.
Thank you, Kingsley, for raising that issue. I think the question will not be, are there no elders? Of course, they are elders. We know they are persons of high repute from who are politically inclined, who belong to political parties, who still exist in the state, and who should, like you said, be providing advice and guide to this new generation of politicians. But unfortunately, because, and again, it goes back to the ideology of our political connetions that we do in Nigeria and the state in particular. What is the ideology behind every political party? And that will guide you to know whether those within that political party can be able to talk to those who become leaders of the party. Because as a political party, and like every human alliances and gathering, you should have those persons who are institutional memory of the party and who should know what direction the party goes to. But because of the way we run political parties and the way we run governance, especially here in Kogi State, it means that whoever becomes the governor, whoever becomes the leader of the party, automatically assumes the position of the person knows all within the party, and the person controls every aspect of the party, and therefore does not allow those who should guide them to come in and bring needed advice. It's a really tragic situation for our political experiment, that continuously we have new generation of political party leaders who do not learn from those who were before them. Because Kogi State has been in existence since 1991. We've conducted elections since 1999 into the governorship office. It should not be a rocket science that we have past governors in the state who should sit in what you may call an elders forum to provide guidance, just the way you have it at the national level. You have the president who calls the past leaders in the country to provide advice and guidance on issues of national importance. We should have them in the state. But because we run this kind of system where the governor assumes all power, assumes all knowledge, it becomes difficult for those who want to provide such advice to do so. And that is the tragedy that we have. It's looking as if there's only a governor in Kogi State. There are no past governors in Kogi State. Nobody has ever been a governor in Kogi State. And it's pushing us towards what the barrister in Port Harcourt talked about, where the conversation, the narrative about Kogi is about insecurity. Of course, we who live here know that the frequency of insecurity is not as much as we hear it on the media and the news, but because that is the conversation that is happening at the national level concerning the state. If you don't have a particular set of people who can provide advice and guidance to a governor or to a political leader, it becomes difficult for that person. Nobody should assume all knowledge, because it's difficult for you as a governor to have your ears and eyes in all these places and to be able to understand where you are coming from and what should be done. Other people have been there before you. And so, Kingsley, like you said, it's really sad that we have this kind of a situation where we do not seem to have those who should provide advice providing the advice.
All right, Hamza, stay with you. You know, when I listen to conversations from some of the candidates, I hear, you know, this person has ruled for this year's, you know, there should be shift, rotation or something like that and all that. And Atiku here had talked about the capacity of the candidates to even campaign, you know, on issues and all that. And I'm wondering what you think of the caliber of the people who are vying for the governorship position at this time.
I would like to defer to what your guest Atiku said in the studio. The quality of the front-running candidates is something that is a representative of the thinking of our people here in Kogi. And like he said, people do not, or people gravitate towards political candidates in this election, not because of their capacity, because none of them has told us anything different. The APC candidate has not said anything different from the PDP candidate. The ADC candidate has not said anything different from the LP candidate. Everybody is saying we're going to give you roads, we're going to give you health infrastructure, we're going to build human capacity. Nobody has said how they are going to do it. And so, the notion that you have political followers, the question will be asking, based on what are you following that person? Is it based on what the person said they are going to do, or based on where the person comes from? And it's a sorry thing, and it's not only peculiar to Kogi. We had this conversation at the national level, where political parties got elected, and there was insinuation that it was based on either ethnic or religious affiliations. And so it's a narrative that we're trying to change, but it's still very difficult, it's still very challenging for us to change it. Because for us in civil society, it's very difficult to understand what extra value does ethnicity, gender, and religion bring into governance. Like Mr. Issa said, can you give us what, if you are a Muslim or a Christian, or if you're a man or a woman, or if you're a Igala or Ibira, what extra value will you bring to constructing the road? Will it be a double lane if you are an Ibira man, or will it be a single lane if you are an Igala man? It doesn't make sense. But because that is the narrative that's being sent out, and yes, I would like to agree that there is some challenge in the kind of in how we frame our conversation. It may not be poverty. I fail to see how somebody who is poor, it becomes an issue on how you select or how you think. Yes, it can be a factor, but I don't think it's the major factor, because you are poor doesn't mean that you cannot articulate and understand issues. I am poor doesn't mean that I should follow a narrative that does not suit my value. But because we're seeing this happening with people, it begins to tell us that this is the value system that we put in place. We put extra value on religion and ethnicity and gender, rather than on capacity and ability to govern properly. And so it's a work in progress that we think, beyond this election, we need to move out from this conversation, this narrative. It's a very sad one that up till now in the 21st century, people in our state are still thinking about where you come from rather than what you're going to do in terms of how you provide services and leadership in the state.
Hamza Aliu, thank you very much. I want to return to Barrister Festus Oguche in our Port Harcourt studios. Festus, the two issues there I want to bring up, and then see how these issues ordinarily could have been part of matters that the candidates will be discussing and the electorate will be demanding responses to. From time to time, when the National Bureau of Statistics publishes the headline inflation figures, and those figures are disaggregated, you would always find Kogi amongst the top ranking in terms of the inflationary percentage, or if you may, the inflationary pressure, food inflation, and so on and so forth, cost of living, and then compounded, of course, by poverty, with the notion that most of Kogi itself is rural. But others would say that there are huge opportunities in Kogi. It has borders or boundaries with 9 or 10 other states, if not more, and no one appears to even be talking about how to harness this unique location of the state. I recall in one of the election cycles in the past, one of the candidates was talking about making Kogi a logistics hub. But nobody seems to raise these issues, and people are just going about, again, the issue about whether there are no elders, to invite attention to what is important for Kogi people.
Put it quite succinctly, Kogi currently has the highest deposit of mineral resources in the state. It has people with high practical and intellectual ability. Governance has not been able to take care of some of these challenges that have confronted the state and its population over time. Somebody raised the issue of poverty. I added that the issue is not just poverty alone, but excruciating poverty that has taking hold of the state. Apart from that taking hold of that state, people cannot no longer go to farms currently because there's a siege of violence on the state. Kogi holds out so much for this country. Look at the landscape. Look at the fertility of the soil. It crossed the confluence of the rivers Niger and Benue. You know, it was actually that environment that informed the British taking over this country in the middle of 19th century, and other issues that confronted it during the Berlin Conference and its insistence that it must take over because of the very glaring opportunities that abound, the prospects of greatness. Incidentally, these things have not been put into consideration. You mentioned some statistics there, yes, and it's something like a paradox, though, that you can have a state with that kind of potential in agriculture, in solid minerals, in fishing, in whatever, and you still have the people very, very poor. It's simply because the political orientation is also as poor as you can think of. I'd say that all the years of the governance in that state has not impacted positively on the people. It has not even impacted. Somebody talked about infrastructure. You know, so it's now something that the mentality of people are now attuned to maybe the political scenario that brings out their own person or their own ethnic nativity or their own clannish interests rather than pursuing those things that are very vital to the proper and vital organization and development of the state. You are very correct, you are very, very right, because if you have a state of that nature where all things put together are supposed to galvanize towards a proper end, and you see these kind of issues cropping up towards elections, you see that level of violence, and I'm sure the elections at the end of the day, except the federal government intervenes, except INEC tightens its news very, very well, the end of the elections will not be determined by the exercise of the will of the people, to be determined by other extraneous factors. But the issues are very straightforward because somebody raised the issue of the capacity of the contestants, and I don't see much capacity in all of them put together. You know, it's all about nobody has discussed the issue of the economic potentials that are bound to Kogi State, how to empower the new generation of young Kogi citizens towards enabling them in the proper direction of pushing and pursuing those ideals that are very necessary for the advancement and stability of the state and its economy. Nobody's discussing that virtually. If you go to the rallies, I think I've had the opportunity of attending a couple of them. You hear nothing but calling of names and very empty and vague political speeches that you cannot hold on to in any way. But then it's not just a Kogi problem, it's also a national problem, and it has its roots in our political orientation. I mean, in the philosophy of the political parties that we have now, and the inclination of these political parties to do all they can by whatever means to get their parties to succeed and to win elections at whatever level, without minding who is going to navigate the course after those elections, who is going to man those offices. I see some bit of megalomania in what is going on in Kogi also. People thinking that they are bigger than God, that they are gods themselves, and everybody should bow. And somebody stated that quite clearly the local just studio, and I think that's quite some problem. And we should understand that we are all humans and we have the same content. And what is important in governance is not that you are from here or I am from there. What is important is that you attach value, you add value to development, you add value to humanity, you add value to society. If you are not prepared for governance, stay in your house. If you are not very much equipped for it, stay where you are. You know, but then I think the whole thing borders on the psychological trauma that the Kogi people are going through. That at the end of the day, it will be less likely to say confidently that whoever turns up to become the governor at the end of the day may not necessarily have to come from the people. It doesn't really tally that day. It doesn't gel at all. That at the end of the day, except these things are put together, the issue of security, the issue of electoral fraud, then we can be sure that whoever emerges as governor they don't do that by the will of the people. Thank you.
Very Mr. Guche, again, electoral fraud, and we must deal with it. And that's why my, question again will be to Atiku Abubakar Isa here in the studio. And I read something shocking this morning from one of the dailies, and it's about, an opinion, the revelation by the resident electoral commissioner in Bayelsa State, and he said that in one of the meetings he held with, the chairman and representatives of the political parties, none of them knew how to, access the IRF portal or even interfaced with the IRF portal for once. Now, I mean, isn't that shocking? And how might that also affect, the elections that is coming in Kogi? If the case is so.
To us, it is not shocking because for you to become chairman of a political party, or for you to hold a political position in most cases, is not based on what you can do or the content of your character, but how loyal you are or how hypocritical you can be. That will determine what you become. And in most cases, the leaders will always prefer somebody that they can turn around. So those who know what they are doing usually are not allowed because the leaders might feel that they will not be able to turn them around. So most of these people, and in most cases, they not rely on on what happens in the IRF. They are mostly concerned about sending, how to manipulate the result and sending it. And of course, they have boys that will be able to send it to the IRF, and they can instruct some boys to also check for them. So they don't bother because they don't. Knowledge is not important to most of these people. What is important is how you can manipulate and change figures.
Issa, thank you for that perspective. Jonathan Omajali, our political correspondent in Lokoja, give our viewers a sense of what is happening. We've been talking about the process, bloodied, of course, by violence activated on the part of some of those political roughnecks. Well, tell us, do the candidates and the parties have reasonable access to the public media to ventilate their campaigns? Do they also have their posters and billboards and other forms of campaign materials in free circulation, or are these toned down by the same thugs who are on the rampage in parts of the state?
The mainstream media, of course, using our station as an example, gives room for the candidates to ventilate their views, cover their events and all of that. But talk about posters, billboards and all of that of other political parties, I think there is a little problem there because sometimes you go out and you see some posters of other political parties and you see things like remove this from this place. I think they are expected to pay some amount of money or so. So basically, most posters, billboards of other political parties are being asked to be removed. Perhaps it has to do with the money they are asked to pay, and some of them have not actually paid. So we have that problem. But of course, like I said, the mainstream media is giving the candidates the opportunity to air their views. And just to digress a little, of apathy that is part of what we are experiencing now. I remember going to cover a campaign in one of the villages in the interior, and I was interviewing someone, and he told me, say, we've been voting for these people for years. He said, look at the road. And he said, many of us are not going to come out. He said, we give, he said, bulk of the votes come from this place. But the roads are bad. He said, so what is the point? He said, many of them are not going to come out to vote. So you have things like that playing out. And I'm surprised none of the candidates is actually talking about environmental problem, because we have the issue of flooding. There are people who are displaced. There are problems. People, their farmlands were destroyed. Some of them are looking for where to stay. Nobody is talking about that. About 9 local government areas affected by flooding last year. You still have people who are yet to recover from these problems. And none of them, none of the candidates, nobody is talking about this thing. How are you going to bring lasting solution to these problems? You know, so the issue of we're going to build road, we're going to do this and all of that, you know, these are things that people hear every time. And key issues, like the other respondents have mentioned, are not being hit on the head. We have about 52 mineral resources in the state. Of course, it's only limestone that is actually being properly harnessed. What happened to the others? So these are issues that are not being talked about in the build-up to the election. And I hope that before November 11, maybe some of these things can be raised by the candidates, so that people will begin to have proper focus and perspective.
All right, Jonathan Omajali, thank you very much for raising that very critical point of concern. We all know what happens usually along the Lokoja Abuja, expressway during, raining season, and of course when that highway gets flooded. So it's a very critical point that you have raised, and I do hope that the candidates will take that into perspective. Jonathan Omajali, NTA political correspondent, speaking to us from our Lokoja studio. I would like to thank you very much for sharing your perspectives with us. Hamza Aliyu is Executive Director, Initiative for Grassroots Advancement in Nigeria, Ingra, Lokoja, Kogi State. Also, we do appreciate your contributions this morning. Barrister Festus Oguche, constitutional lawyer and public affairs analyst. Barrister Oguche, thank you. I know you have a lot to talk about, but of course we'll keep at it. November 11 is still ahead, and I'm sure that we will always reach you for your comments. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let me also appreciate Atiku Abubakar Isa here in the studio, who is a political analyst. We do appreciate your contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Don't forget, when we come back, we'll be looking at the PNID case, which Nigeria won, and indeed it's been described as a case won not just for Nigeria, but for the African continent. Join us again.